This is Welton Becket. For those of you who are not familiar, he is her grandfather. So you come from quite a legacy. So if you want to start your presentation, his body of work is iconic and amazing. And as we go through the photos, you will recognize some of these buildings, and many you won't even realize that he had designed. So take it away, Alex.
So my grandfather was from Seattle and went to the University of Washington and moved to LA to apprentice with an older architect who passed away. So he started in the early 30s, and this is him as a young architect when he was first working on some commercial buildings. One of them was in the Philippines, in Manila, and it was a wood auditorium, which I don't have a picture of in here. Anyway, this is my grandmother Faye with my grandfather when they traveled to the Philippines when they were working on this auditorium, one of his first commercial projects. And then they had two sons. So my dad here on the left, and then Welton Jr. on the right. It's kind of unusual because Jr. is usually the older son, but in this case, it's the younger son. And when
I go
my
to
parents,
several AA meetings on Zoom and have a pretty good feel for the entire.
I'm trying to find who was someone saying something about Welton.
They dropped off.
Okay. Okay. So they lived in Brentwood at this time. And then my grandfather had his first grandson, my brother, and he actually passed away soon after the picture was taken with my brother as a baby here. So he passed away at the height of his career. He had projects going all over the world and suddenly died of a heart attack. And so I never met him. And that's part of the reason why I'm so amazed by his career, because growing up, I really wasn't aware of what he accomplished until I was out of college. We didn't talk about it too much when I was growing up. I knew he did the Capitol Records building. I knew he was involved in the LAX theme building, but it wasn't until I was in my 20s that I really started learning about his career. My dad went to architecture school at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. And then when he finished, he started working for his father's firm. So this is my dad when he was first working there, and with his father Welton. And then can you see the picture on the right? Oh, darn. I just clicked too quickly, but that was my mom. And my mom's on Zoom. So my mom, Sharon, is here with us. So if she wants to add anything, go ahead and unmute when you want, Mom. This is the house that Welton Becket designed and had built when my father was growing up. This was in Holmby Hills and sadly was torn down in the 90s. It was an incredible property from the looks of this picture, all the space after it was completed. And I'm just amazed at the photos of this house when I see the interiors and all the built-ins. And they had an incredible small, tight-knit community, and they were friends with most of the neighbors. The Disney family lived down the street. Lauren Bacall lived next door. Art Linkletter and Hoagie Carmichael would come over and play the piano. They were all very social, close-knit friends.
And also, Alexandra's dad told me Welton did the Beverly Hills Hilton, where the Golden Globes are, and iconic restaurant. Trader Vic's was there, And they used to have like weekly Sunday dinners there. This Walt Disney and Art Linkletter and a bunch of characters that are, household names it would be amazing to be invited to one of those conversations.
Yeah. Mom, if you feel like unmuting, I'm guessing you probably went to Trader Vic's with Welton and the crew quite a bit too. And I was lucky enough to be able to go before it was torn down. We celebrated one of my grandfather's birthdays. It would have been his 100th birthday at Trader Vic's at the Beverly Hills Hilton.
Yeah, I'll step in. That was his favorite place, and we would go frequently, a lot. And just so you know, Dad just walked in, so
Oh, good.
he can hear too and see it.
Good, good. Hi, Dad.
Hi, this is very impressive. Great
I'm
program.
We just
You
read
have-
about it this afternoon, so we were very
Well, I
happy.
think now you should stay unmuted because if you have some things to add, that would be great.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Let us know when we should mute again then.
Okay, I'll tell you if there's a, interference or something.
Okay.
So the Welton Becket and Associates firm came up with a philosophy that I find very inspiring called Total Design. They came up with the name and they had a book published about it. And they basically handled designing every aspect of the project, the engineering, the aesthetics, all the needs of the client. So they were not out to put their own stamp on buildings. They were very, very dedicated towards creating a building that was appropriate for the client. And they designed every single detail. So Trader Vic's is a great example because not only did they design the building according to what the hotel's needs were on a very particular triangular lot in Beverly Hills, but they designed every detail down to the Trader Vic's plates, the menu, the matchbook covers. So it just trickled down to every single detail. And that was very unusual during that time. I think it was the beginning of kind of like branding of what companies do now. Pan Pacific Auditorium was one of their earliest projects. Actually, he did it with Werdeman, the older architect that he partnered with when he first moved to Los Angeles. And it was a streamlined, modern style, very interesting facade. Sadly, it burned down. Probably quite a few of you remember when it burned down in '89. Greg actually filmed a music video there when he was fresh out of college, and and I think didn't you, Greg, climb the fence or whatever you needed to do to get in there? And
Well, we got permission, but the rules were we couldn't go on the building. So of course I put the musicians on these towers here.
up there.
Yeah, and what's also interesting about this building, it's very iconic. Elvis Presley played his first concert here in Los Angeles, and it was a huge multi-purpose arena where the Pan Pacific Park is now, near the Grove or near Air One on Beverly. It's right, that park there. But if you go into Walt Disney World or Disneyland, they have replicated this structure. So it lives on there.
It's actually the ticket office of the not new, but the
What was the addition?
California Adventure.
Yeah, California Adventure. So when you buy a ticket and enter, this is replicated there.
This is such a fun cover of Life magazine. I found one on eBay. It's a mobile, an electric lounge chair for sunbathing that he designed along with a lot of other electrical controlled devices at a house in Palm Springs for the McCullough family. Incredible, just incredible engineering, and unfortunately that house was torn down, but the history there is amazing. If you look it up online, you can read about what the house was like. But I just love this picture of the sunbathing. Capitol Records, of course. You know, Welton Becket and Associates gets credit for it. Louis Nadorf was the actual architect. So the firm had a staff of, I think, 40. Is that about right, Dad?
It was more like maybe 100 at that time.
Oh, wow. So Louis Nadorf was the designer of the building. There are a lot of conflicting stories that it wasn't necessarily designed to look like a tower of records, but it ended up looking like one. And then there's other stories that say, no, it was his intention. What else is there to say? The echo chambers are underground. I was lucky enough to get a tour by, what's that? Anyway, I went down into the echo chambers, which go 30 feet below, down a very steep ladder. And that's where a lot of, specific sounds are created. Still to this day, they use the chambers.
Can you name some artists that utilized it?
I don't know. Do you?
I know the Beatles recorded there. Frank Sinatra recorded there.
Beach Boys.
The Beach Boys?
Beach Boys, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know specific songs that were created using the echo chambers, but yeah, the roster of musicians is incredible. Sadly, most of the office buildings sit there empty. They're really not used much, but the recording studios are still very much in demand. And then the LAX theme building I find very interesting because it was a collaboration of the top, I think it was 4 architects. I think I mistyped 5 because Paul Williams, William Pereira, Charles Luckman, and Welton Becket, and they each had different roles in the construction of the building, which I just don't hear about architects collaborating in general, but especially not these days. So I really appreciate that. Cinerama Dome Theater. Pierre Cabral was on staff as an architect, and he was the architect of this project, but it was inspired by Buckminster Fuller's geodesic domes. And it was poured concrete, poured on site. And there's really great pictures of it being constructed that the LA Magazine, I think, is coming out with in the next couple of months. And luckily, people were really worried when it closed during the pandemic, but it will be restored and reopened. I think, Candace, you found this picture, right?
I did. Basically the information that we have there is what, from we could tell, the 1960 Fair, World Fair. I guess that was a collaboration between Walt Disney and Welton Becket for the pavilion that was there back in the day. We don't do the World's Fair anymore, though.
So, Dad, maybe you would like to add to this, but Walt and Welton were very close personal friends. And Walt asked Welton if he could help do the architecture of Disneyland. And my grandfather said, well, I would love to, but I really think that you have the best team with your Imagineers to come up with the right design on this. Is that right, Dad?
Yes, I might interject though that Walt asked my dad to fly in a helicopter with him to try to select the site, they looked at many different locations around Orlando and focused in on this one because of its good access, good visibility, and so on. My dad was very proud to be a part of that site selection.
For Disneyland in LA or Orlando?
In Orlando.
Oh. Oh, wow.
They
Wow,
were
so-
very good. They were very good friends and worked
Mhm.
together on several projects.
My dad was lucky enough to ride Walt's train in his backyard, you know, a little prototype train before Disneyland was even begun. And I grew up watching family movies of my dad and his brother riding the train. It's amazing.
He had a very beautiful property. The landscaping was just incredible, inspiring to ride around on this little train, go through tunnels and across lakes. It was just really a wonderful experience.
Wow.
That was just before he got excited about doing Disneyland.
I would love to drive by and see exactly where their house was. And does anyone know if it's still there?
It's not still there. There's a new home, a
Oh,
giant big home that covers almost the entire lot.
wow.
It's kind of a shame. It was a real special property with the landscaping and a very interesting house.
Wow. Here's Welton during the completion of the Dorothy Chandler, and then I love this picture with the model. And from the stories I've heard, he really worked so closely with Dorothy Chandler on her vision, and it was a modernized take on a classic European style building. But he designed the 3 theaters of the music center, and I think you were both there, right? My parents were at the opening, which I just love to hear about and how elegant it was, right? You were both there in
Yeah,
1965, I think it opened.
fantastic ceremony, unbelievable turnout of people, and of course it was raised mostly with private funds. The county put a lot of money into it, but it grew. It kept growing and growing as time went on. Everybody got very excited about it, and it ended up costing about 3 times what the county was willing to put in.
Oh, wow.
So the balance of the fund was raised with private donations.
Oh, wow.
Did it open 1965? I think that's when it was.
I think so.
So Candace is involved in the preservation of Century City and found these great pictures.
Oh,
And thank you, Alexandra. And also I want to say Nancy Woods is on the call. Thank you for joining us today, Nancy. She's currently the executive director at the Century City Chamber of Commerce. I worked there a long time ago. I don't count my years because it just dates me. I am timeless. I'm one of those people ask me how old I am and I'm like, doesn't matter really. But anyway, I was there when they were celebrating the 40th anniversary of Century City. And that's actually when Alex and I became acquainted because I found some photographs in our archive that had Julius Schulman's name on it. And when I called it, it was actually him. So when I was speaking to Julius, he kind of referred me to a few other people, and Chris Nichols of LA Magazine was one of them. And I'm sorry, Chris could not be on the call today, but you know, after speaking with Chris, he introduced me to you and your family, and we got a few other people involved, kind of the guests of honors for the event that we hosted at the Chamber of Commerce. And throughout the whole office, we had 8x10, some 8x10 on the walls in the conference room that chronicled the development of Century City from when it was like Tom Mick's Ranch to Fox Studios to the development of Century City. And then we had some oversized, anyway, it was this gala, an event that we could possibly hold at the chamber office to commemorate this. So this is a little bit of a retrospective for me as well, as I kind of go through this with you. And again, these are archive photos that are not really easily found. So back in the day when it was Fox's lot, Century City actually has about 71 acres of the property. And it was a developer from New York, Mr. Zeckendorf. He had brokered the deal for Fox Studios to sell the land. And here we see, this is back in 1959, where they had a press conference. So it was a long-term project, obviously, because when you're going to take down 71 acres of a studio, the original press conference that they held, you could see like it's on the Fox lot. We see this burnt out saloon. And I love the caddy on the right with the old film camera there. I don't know how well you could see because it's a little small, but Welton Becket is sitting at the dais to the extreme right. And there's just a list of local notaries and governmental people and people who work with the city talking about the development of Century City. I guess you could go to the next slide. Yeah, she's doing the slide, so I'll just say next. So this is interesting. This is really the plan that they had unveiled. This is an early master plan. And as you could see, for those of you who are familiar with Century City, this was old and this was not put into effect because you have the 3 elliptical buildings there. That never happened. Instead, they developed the 2 twin towers, which we'll get a glimpse at in a moment. But basically what they had done was they had built the 2 first buildings that were built were the Gateway East and the Gateway West building, and also the Century City Mall. So here we see Welton on the left. He is in front of his Gateway West building. The building on the other side most recently had been purchased and owned by Topa and John Anderson's company. And this stands at the corner. This is the gateway to Century City. And on the right, we see Welton, and that was in the lobby of the hotel, that was in the lobby of the office building. It's this large wrought iron, I guess it's wrought iron or kind of, it's just a large piece of artwork. I don't know who the artist is. Unfortunately, they had taken this building down maybe 5 or 10 years ago. And I always wondered what happened to this large art piece. I mean, it's larger than life. It probably spans at least 20 feet by maybe 30 feet, 30, 40 feet. If you go to Century City Mall now, the Westfield Century City, that structure, that art piece on the right is actually along the wall in their food court. So I was very happy to see that that piece had been preserved and it's being put to use now in Century City.
I am so glad. So many of the buildings that have been torn down, it's just a mystery where the art goes. And that's something I really admire about how they commissioned incredible artists for almost every building. And the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion has the most amazing sculptures above the bar, and then the curtain was designed by Tony Duquette, and there's a shell mural in the Amundsen. It just, the list goes on and on. Mosaics, just amazing the amount of artwork that was commissioned for these projects. So I'm so glad to hear. I've got to go see that. I haven't seen this mural in Century City at the mall.
All 3 of you should go and take Mom and Dad.
Yes, in the food court, in the new food court, right?
Yeah, you'll see it.
Great, great.
Next slide. There you go. So there, on the right is an aerial view of Century City. That is about 2007. And the reason why that's dated is because if you look in the distance a little bit to the right, you'll see the Century condominium residence that was built and completed in 2009. So this is about a 2007 rendering or photograph. The model on the left is what, instead of the original design drawing that you had seen a few slides ago with the 3 elliptical buildings, this is actually what what became of it. You see Century Plaza Towers, and then in front of it, or underneath it sort of, was ABC Entertainment Center. I was there when ABC Entertainment Center was there, and it was in the process of being raised or taken down. I know they had done a study to see is it something that they could keep, but when you really look at like the type of the building, the layout, the infrastructure, the asbestos, the decision was made to take it down and build a new building. And I guess that's the reason for a lot of buildings that are being torn down. I mean, residences are one thing. It's always sad to see a residence go down, but you know, building like this, I guess there were just practical and logistical needs that it wasn't up to 21st century standards. So this has been since replaced by 2000 Avenue of the Stars, which is an amazing building. It's all steel and glass, and there's a big portal in the middle, and it's beautiful. But
referred to as Darth Vader. Yeah, not the Death Star.
so yeah, that, you know, I don't have a better photograph of ABC Entertainment Center. But then you see Avenue of the Stars, which is the dividing line. The little elliptical image in the middle, that's actually a water fountain. And then the curved building, that's the Century Plaza Hotel, or at least that's how, you know, it was built as the Century Plaza Hotel. Very recently, there were plans to potentially take down that building, but preservationists kind of stepped in, and a lot of studies were done, and they actually decided to keep the building itself, do a complete remodel, and now it's a Fairmont branded hotel. And behind it, they're in the process of putting in 2 condo office towers. Nancy, I don't know if you want to chime in a little bit and give us an update. But yeah, Century City, even though it is a building that's clustered with larger buildings, there's still development taking place there. But it was a great community. I loved working there. And we could go to the next slide, because I think the next slide, oh, this is a fun one. This is you. With Julius Schulman. Do you want to talk about Julius Schulman? He actually took the photograph on the left. Julie, you could talk about Julius.
So I met Julius a few years before he passed away, and he just had wonderful stories to tell about how supportive the Welton Becket office was to support his career early on. You know, I think he was already established, but he was photographing Neutras, but he just really appreciated how much he was employed by Welton Becket, and he was such a character, He was always very, very emphatic about giving credit to Welton Becket's start with the architect he partnered with, Walter Werdeman, the one that that worked on the Pan Pacific Auditorium and the Hialeah Auditorium in the Philippines. And I think Greg, maybe you remember, he told stories about how the two of them helped get him started. Am I right?
Yeah, I think his memory, you know, he was focusing on something that happened so long ago. You know, he was approaching 100, and this was 50 or 60 years before that. So, you know, it's funny on the age how he really focused on that. But one curious thing, or one interesting thing, is Alexandra actually interviewed Julius just less than 6 months before he died. It's probably the last interview he ever did. So that
Yeah, it was
really
for a
cool.
magazine publication that is mostly an art publication called Fabric Magazine. And so Greg and I went over there and interviewed him. And then there was a writer there who I think put it together. But it was wonderful. It just really was special to make a connection with him. So
Did I misspell?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes, you can talk to this, or I could talk to this.
go ahead. I don't know too much about the Polynesian Village.
Yeah, well, apparently Welton Beckett's body of work not only spans from Los Angeles in the LA area, but he's actually done work around the world. And because he and Walt Disney were such great friends, Walt Disney asked him to do the two main hotels that were built at the time, the Magic Kingdom. It was not known as Walt Disney World when it first opened. It was called the Magic Kingdom, and it opened on October 1st, 1971. So there's the exterior of the building and an interior shot. And Welton was the designer on that. And then we could go to the next slide. And then the Contemporary Hotel. This is another Welton Becket design. Has anybody here been to Walt Disney World?
Oh,
Nobody,
gotta
huh?
go.
Well, it's really
I
interesting.
have, I've been there.
Oh, that's great. Well, that's fun. And I'm sure you've been to Disneyland as well.
Oh, yes.
Of course. Well, it's funny. People on the West Coast go to Disneyland and people on the East Coast go to Disney World, and me,
True.
not coastal, but I've been to both. Disneyland in Anaheim was built in 1955, whereas the Magic Kingdom had opened in October 1971. And these two hotels were, at breakneck pace and trying to get this together for opening day. But if you look just at the architectural design, I mean, would you consider that a trapezoid building? You could just see like all the lights on the side and what I'd love to point out is the monorail as we know it actually went through that hotel.
Wow.
On the right, you see the hotel going through the center. You see the monorail going through the center of the hotel. And when Alex was mentioning how they always commission artists to do work, to the left, you'll see this large mosaic art piece, which is still there to this day. So just the breadth of work of Welton Becket is just phenomenal. And the design. So I'm really glad that we can go through all. And this is just a fraction, you guys. I mean, the list goes on and on and on about some of the work he's done, but we've selected photos that were kind of at the top of most people's radar. Oh yeah, this is a fun one. You had a good story about this. I think in some of my promotion, I did say, what do Hilton Hotels, Walt Disney, and Fidel Castro have in common?
And my dad should really share his experience. It's just incredible. I think, Dad, you might have worked on this project. I know you went to the opening, and right after the hotel was completed, Fidel Castro took it over as his headquarters for years. So
I was a little young at the time to work on the project, but I visited with my family, I think 2 or 3 times. We stayed in the home of a local architect who worked with the Cuban government to coordinate the permits and things. And they had a beautiful home and an incredible beach area.
Oh,
But the hotel was very modern at the time. No one had built anything like this. It was constructed with scaffolding that was made of bamboo
wow.
originally. And I've forgotten how many stories exactly. I think the bamboo structure went all the way up to the penthouse.
Wow.
The firm designed all the furniture. They designed and had it manufactured by local Cuban companies or individuals.
Amazing. You have the most incredible videos of the interiors where you can see the furniture and the artwork that was made locally. It's just incredible.
It was a very exciting project from my dad and the firm. They were tremendously involved in it.
Amazing. I love this rendering that you found with, I think, David, you found this. It's just great. It has the flag. It's just a really good one.
And David's actually been there. He stayed there. Did you stay there?
I did not stay there, no.
Oh.
But I have visited it, and
Yeah, it's still, I don't know if it's a Hilton, but I know it's still a hotel.
David's muted.
After the hotel was originally completed, Castro took over within 2 weeks. He put his entire staff of the new government in the hotel. And it was like that for 25 years, I think, until
Wow.
recently they converted it back into a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Alexandra's other daughter, Elisa, and her husband stayed there. I believe they spent a couple of days there.
That's right. That's right. And there's a beautiful mural. You can't, it might be on the other side, but there's a very interesting mural. I remember she came home and showed us pictures of that's still intact. It must be on the other side. I think it's the front side.
Oh, I figured, I'm mute? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, great. I figured there was no way that we could mention Welton Becket. We had to mention Julia Schulman and also the artwork by Shag. Shag is an artist that's been around for quite some time. And, obviously the designs of Welton Becket inspire us to this day. And somebody like Shag really kind of takes it to the next level and has popularized it with a lot of his design. This is just a fraction of some of Shag's work. But if you look at the image to the right, okay, you see like the Tiki Polynesian over to the left, and he really captures that retro 1960s vibe. In late 1950s. And then over to the right, you see the Capitol Records building with the Cinerama Dome in the distance and Penn's Cafe. Like, have you ever met Shag?
I think Greg and I met him twice, once in Palm Springs at an art opening, and then again at his store, I think. But
Yeah, just briefly, but.
oh yeah, and I think he signed this print for us. Yeah, we have this. I just love how much Welton Becket is in here, and this is Julia Schulman here. Just love it.
Exactly. So yeah, and I think, let's see, the next slide is.
Yeah.
Is there
I think
next
that's
slide?
it.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Yeah,
There
that's
we
all.
go. That's
Oh,
our
there it is.
presentation.
And I see that I hadn't opened the chat until now, but I can go through it if anybody has any questions there.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions or any stories about any of these buildings, feel free to chime in.
I have a question about the model, the original model of Century City. Does anybody know what happened to it? It was incredibly detailed, beautifully made. You know where it is?
I'm sure it's gone, and I hate to say that so confidently, but I know there are a few different companies that had archives of Century City, because Century City was the backdrop for the movie Planet of the Apes. It was where the torch was brought in the 1970s. There's just so many celebrity shots and so many great, throughout the year, so many events that had taken place in Century City. A lot of those photo archives have been lost. So if photo archives are lost, I'm sure the models are gone, unless there's been somebody that had worked with one of the design firms that kept them, but I don't think so.
Yeah, the only place I can guess it possibly could be is the when the Welton Becket firm was sold to Dad. What was the engineering firm called? Becket.
Oh, goodness.
Um,
No, not Ellerby. Ellerby?
Ellerby.
Yes.
There was a second step.
yeah, Ellerby Becket is what the firm turned into, and they acquired the Welton Becket archive. So supposedly there's a lot that they have, but that's not accessible.
It's now owned by AECom,
Oh,
the large organization similar to Parsons and Floor Corporation.
okay.
Hundreds,
Well,
thousands of offices, and I think about 80,000 employees.
There's probably a hidden archive somewhere that's, nobody's
could be.
seen.
It could be.
It's worth looking into, because I realized that Welton's building was taken down, and right now there's a luxury apartment building that stands there, just on the periphery between like Century City and Beverly Hills.
Oh, where the Welton Becket office was. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful building.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me when that subject comes up of who Alexandra's grandfather was. Like, nobody has heard of him. Like, his name is not common like the residential, architects, everybody knows Frank Lloyd Wright and Noichira and on and on. But when you talk about his buildings, everybody, you say Capitol Records, you say Cinerama Dome, you say LAX theme building. Everybody then says, those are my favorite buildings in LA. So there's it's sad that, you know, the person who was responsible for all these isn't as well known, and it's a great opportunity, I think, for a documentary or I don't know.
Greg, he didn't have the ego that a lot of architects and artists have today. He was very quiet, very
Yeah.
shy, and did not advertise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, his buildings are so well loved to this day, though, and they're really, like you say, iconic of Los Angeles, you know, one of the world's great cities. So,
Well, they were so varied also because, I mean, a lot like you, Dad, my dad's an architect still working that really focuses on the needs of the client. So that was what they were known for. And it's just kind of remarkable because they grew and they were so big, but they didn't have a signature look because they were creating each project individually. And I'm inspired by that too. When we're looking to renovate homes, everything is so different from each other. Each residential project is so different that you really have to cater to that individual house. So, yeah, there was no ego there, and I just really admire that.
Oh yeah, and he was too busy working. He was too busy getting things done. I mean, he's built more buildings than I've sold buildings in his career. I mean, like he builds them, like he's amazing.
It's very true.
Yeah, and I must mention, for those of you who want more information, you can also go to like LA Conservancy. They have a whole roster of the buildings and you'd be very impressed. I mean, everything from like Pomona, there's a Fairplex or municipal building in Pomona. There's the Glendale Public Library.
Santa Monica Civic.
Oh, Santa Monica Civic, yes, so much. I mean, this whole presentation could have been 2 or 3 hours, but we just kind of brought it down to what was local.
Someone asked where the office was located, and first it was located on Wilshire, mid Wilshire, and then it moved to, they had a building built between Beverly Hills and Century City on Little Santa Monica, which unfortunately we talked about was torn down. But it was so interesting because on the exterior there was a mosaic banner and water features as you walked in with, you know, steps over the water. And then someone else asked, what on Capitol Records, what is the Morse code blinking? Does anybody know? Lawrence, do you know?
I had forgotten.
Hollywood.
Can you hear
Hollywood?
David? David knows.
Hollywood. So it's blinking Hollywood since 1956. It was blinking Hollywood, and in 1992, for the one time only, they changed it to blink Capitol 50 in honor of the 50 years that the building had been erected. So yeah, so that was the only time that they changed it. Now it's back to blinking Hollywood.
Oh,
Did you hear all that?
I
Didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Interesting.
And I was told that it was, I mean, I know you say that there's different stories, but I was told it was a stack of records and the spire in the top was supposed to be where it drops down for the next record when it's playing on all the 45s are playing or
right. Yeah, Dad, I don't know if you heard that part of the story, that there's kind of conflicting stories about whether it was designed to look like a stack of records or not.
I was always told by those in the office that it was not intended to be a stack of records. It was originally to do a round building that had never been done before in the States, to my knowledge.
Right, the first round office building, and the intention was to put the elevators and all of the utilities and the bathrooms in the core, in the center, so that every office would have a view. So that's where it started from, I think, originally, and then it ended up looking like a stack of records.
That's correct. Another very significant kind of invention was this sunscreen. They were very specially designed metal reflectors that reflected the heat and light outward. I've forgotten what it's called, but it's a special metal
Oh,
that
wow.
was designed, because the building faced 180 degrees of sun, and it was entirely exposed at that time. They knew that they had to provide as some kind of protection from the sun.
Oh, so not only do they cover like an awning, but they deflect the
They-
light.
Correct. Yes,
Oh, wow.
it was quite an ingenious invention at the time. There weren't many buildings that would do that.
He was responsible for 2 of the 4 biggest Hollywood attractions, the Hollywood sign, Capitol Records, Cinerama Dome, and Chinese theater. So 50%, that's not bad.
Right.
Oh, someone's asking, did Capitol Records inspire the Corn Cob Marina City Round Building in Chicago? Any idea, Bruce?
I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that.
I'm not either.
There's another similar looking one, which I think is an apartment building off of the 405 in Sunset.
The Lux Hotel.
Oh,
It was a
yeah.
Holiday Inn.
It's a hotel.
Holiday Inn.
It was a Holiday Inn and now it's called the Lux.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, yeah.
It was a Holiday Inn, now it's a Lux Hotel.
Oh, right, right.
Oh, and there's a round building, is it, excuse me, it used to be the Holiday Inn in Hollywood, where Hollywood and Highland are.
Oh,
Is that a round building? Oh, or maybe I'm just thinking of the lounge upstairs. I'm thinking of the lounge.
and then there's the 1970s Bonaventure downtown, which isn't
Yeah.
round, but it has that roundness to it.
Uh,
And,
All of those buildings were built after the Capitol Records building.
Mhm.
I don't know about the one in Chicago. What's the name of the one in Chicago?
Somebody referred to it as the Corn Cob Building.
Look it
Oh,
up.
yeah. I'll share our contact info. I remember Candace, you mentioned that. I'll put that in our chat.
That would be great. And while I do that, I wouldn't mind doing an introduction between Natalie and Alex. I don't know if, I guess Natalie has a really nice place in Silver Lake. And I don't know, at one point she reached out to you, so.
Oh,
Alex,
see.
it's so crazy. I sent you an email Sunday.
oh,
I like just
Yeah.
sent you an email
yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
hi, I live in Silver Lake because I got your number through Mary Regal.
Okay. And yeah, I wrote you back, right?
I don't think so.
No? I got your email. I got your email. Natalie.
Maybe I missed it, but I've looked at your work for a while. I know the house on Castle. It's right up the street from me. It's a block from me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, you know, not that anybody else needs to know this, but I desperately need some help. I'm great with numbers. I am like terrible with design. Like I can't.
Oh, that's the opposite
can't
of me.
see
I'm
it.
terrible with numbers. Luckily, Greg's not, but yeah, no, I would love to help you.
Oh my God, that would be amazing. Please, if you can't find my email, it's Natalie, maybe email Candace and she can give you.
I remember seeing it. I'll find it. Yeah,
Amazing.
sorry, I was out of town.
Not at all. I'm so excited. Like when I saw your name today, I was like, are you kidding?
Wow, so it was a
so random.
coincidence that you were on this with Candace and David, or you know.
She co-hosted
Oh,
us.
well, as a matter of fact, Natalie co-hosts with us, and usually we end our presentations and Q&A with a movement mortgage update with the lovely Natalie Salen. So Natalie, if you would like to tell us what's going on with mortgage rates and in the market.
Sure. So, you know, you guys we're on like an upward trend due to inflation and due to all the news that we have to lower our balance sheet. Like all of that has sent the market for a whirl. I'll just show you some pictures of graphs and stuff because I've been having to send my clients these so that they understand what's happening. Because even just from last week, rates are shifting and by a lot. I've been in the business 17 years and I don't think I've ever seen rates shift as drastically as quickly. Normally it's a slow rise up, and since mid-February, it's just been this like, we can't even hang on. So this is what the 10-year market, which is how we base our rates, this is what it looks like for the past week. So you can see on the 5th, which was Tuesday, they came up 3 times in one day. You can see on the 5th to just the 6th, this like, okay, let me see if I can do this. Okay,
Wow.
here we go. It's not, this camera is so messed up. Here we go. Here we go. So see, this is from the 5th to the 6th.
Yeah.
That's where rates went. Now I'm going to press on a month. And that's what they've done in the past month.
Right.
So see all the way from down here to here. We're now at like almost 2.7, which breaks another threshold. Started under 2.0 at like 1.9. That's where rates have gone. And then I'll show you 3 months. That's 3 months.
Oh. Yeah.
Wish those were my assets.
Well, and that brings up a very good point, right? So because inflation is so high and everything is costing so much more so quickly, this historically, for all intents and purposes, with graphs and charts, and financial analysts have done a lot of studies on this. I had a big like Zoom conference last week on it. We're basically leading to a recession. And there's already talks of it in Europe. They've already come out and said that they're right on the verge of one. And as you know, we kind of follow in the trend of Europe and the
Recession.
so they're kind of talking about this recession. This financial analyst is like super national known guru when it comes to rates, said it's going to be tough for the next maybe 6 to 9 months, and then prepare for a refi market. I was like, are you kidding? Are you saying this to us right now? Like a refi market.
Was that Barry Habib?
It was,
I
yeah.
thought so. I thought-
Yeah. And he spoke just to movement. He did like a huge conference just for all of movement. But he basically showed us the historic charts, and they really do lead to when we have this kind of inflation and an inverted yield curve. That's what happens is we are leading up to an imminent recession is what, it's what it all shows. So it's a very interesting thing to note. Even though rates are very high now, there might be light at the end of this for our clients. I wasn't expecting it. I was thinking, we're going to be in the 4s and 5s, possibly high 5s for the next couple of years. But that's not maybe what it's looking like. We'll see. So rates right now on a conventional loan, so conventional under 647, we're kind of around 4.5. On high balance, so Fannie Mae, if you remember the last time we spoke, Fannie Mae decided to hit high balance loans for first-time home buyers and for purchases in Los Angeles. That's where we are, right? So high balance is 647 to 970. That's the high balance loan limit. Fannie and Freddie came out kind of in February and said that there's a loan level pricing adjustment to rates for being in this loan, range. I don't know why they're hurting our clients particularly, like Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, like all of the high median price areas, but they are. And then jumbos were low for a while. So jumbos were hanging in the high 3s for a while. As my high balance rates were in like the high 4s, my jumbos were still in the high 3s. And I was like shifting clients into jumbo loans that will do high balance so that I could get them the better rate. But jumbo loans are so much more particular. So it can only be for a perfect loan client. So I can't do that if I can only use 1 year tax return for our self-employed people, right? So there's like all this puzzling that's happening the past couple of months. It's been really hard. And then now, because jumbo always moves slower, now jumbo is actually ticking up a bit. And they are in the low 4s, low to mid 4s now on even my best price jumbo. It's only a couple places that will do high 3s still on a 30-year fixed. Our arms on jumbo are much better. I locked someone today at 3.5 on an arm. So it is a consideration now. If it's a first-time home buyer, we all know that, like, what is it? 93% of first-time home buyers don't stay in the home more than 5 to 7 years. Right? So, so it is a consideration to do a 7 or 10-year arm if they have a perfect file. But basically, we're in the high 4s, low 5s for high balance conventional and low 4s or so on jumbo. And keep in mind, and I've been telling, this has been, it's a saying of mine that I always have had, but I've had to repeat it lately more often, which is the cheapest line is the longest line because everybody is standing in it. Everybody wants the cheapest rate. So you're going to wait for it. So can I close the cheapest lender out there in 21 days? No, I can't. We have to wait for that rate. It's at least a 30-day escrow. And if I get a 30-day escrow to 35-day escrow, I'll say, hey guys, we can give the lowest rate to our borrower, but we need extra time for it because everyone is in that line right now doing what we're doing. And those investors are slammed, didn't know what hit them because they weren't expecting what happened.
Right. That's right.
So it's just something to keep in mind. You know, we have to be patient and good to our lenders right now, for sure.
Natalie, doesn't the Fed have a schedule? Like, how many more times this year are they anticipated to increase the rates?
6.
Yes, 6, and at least a 0.5% each time, correct?
They only did a quarter this last time.
Okay.
I think it'll depend on where the inflation numbers are. We could be looking at a 0.5 on this next because of the balance sheets. But I wouldn't guarantee a 0.5 on every time.
So what would be the maximum after all said and done?
No maximum.
There is no ceiling.
There
there's
is
no
no
cap. Okay.
No cap. No, not at all. People will stop buying homes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they can't do it. They won't do it. They won't allow that to happen. It'll crash the market. And I mean the stock market, you know.
Will people really stop buying homes? I mean, I don't think 4.5 that is that high.
Oh, no,
Might sound naive.
It's not high at all. I've been telling my clients, rates were in the high 4s, low 5s in 2019 at the end of the year. And then we had a pandemic, right? So everything came down at that point. But we were very much in the high 4s, low 5. We are very much where we were at the end of 2019. And they are still historically low rates. I think we've gotten spoiled, right? But when you say no cap, how high can they go? How high can they go? I mean, we all know where they were in the 70s and 80s, 18, 19, 21% at its max in 1980. So can they go that high? They can. I don't think anyone in Los Angeles is buying a house at 15% interest rate. Yet, not here, not with where our prices are. You know?
No, I remember those days.
I'll buy an Airstream.
There you go.
A lot of people are, or a tiny house, or your own plot of land in the desert and build.
Joshua Tree.
Joshua Tree, yeah. I have clients that are looking at Joshua Tree.
Right, right.
Wow.
And then you have to find lot loans and only 2 banks do those, so. Yeah. So it's, you know, we'll see what happens. But yes, rates are still excellent. There's no, you know, people, like I said, got spoiled. I get on the phone with somebody and I'll say the rate is 4.5 and they gasp and are like, oh, never mind. I mean, this is what I hear all day. So it's like this. Well, are you uncomfortable with the payment? Because all that matters is the payment. If you feel comfortable with the payment, I promise you, you're not even going to remember what the rate is. And it's true. Nobody remembers what their rate is, but they know their payment. And if they're comfortable with the payment, that's what really matters.
Isn't it tricky though? I mean, if somebody gets that lower priced interest rate for an arm, I mean, I would be terrified what my rate would be in 5 to 7 years. Like, isn't that risky? Like, do you advise for that or against? Like, under what circumstance, just for regular residential property, would you recommend that a client get into an arm?
If they know that they're not going to be in the property for more than 7 to 10 years.
Said that,
If
yeah.
they know they're going to get out of it. Yeah, if it's a really small house or a lot, I mean, a lot of my clients are wanting arms right now, and a lot of people are asking for interest-only loans.
You know, that makes sense. And to be honest, I come from like a family in a time where, you know, you just kind of buy and hold, whether it's stocks or real estate, you buy and hold. So I'm always kind of looking at the long term when I make a purchase. But, you know, you're absolutely right. People are more mobile now. We have the millennials. People are moving for jobs. People are staying, you know, working from their home. An arm does make sense if you know you're going to move.
It does. I mean, I have several investment properties and stuff, and I have a 30-year fixed on every single one. And I spoke to kind of like years ago before I had anything, an incredibly successful businessman when it comes to real estate, has tons of buildings in San Francisco and stuff. And he was very conservative. And he was like, I don't know, in my time, somebody gave me a loan. I signed a paper saying I was going to pay for it for 30 years. And in 30 years, I was going to own the building outright. And now I own everything outright. And he, you know, literally it was that simple. And I was like, that makes so much sense. You know, he's like, I don't know. I signed a paper once a month. I pay a bill and I do it for 30 years. And in 30 years, I'll own that building outright. And so that's what I did. And I was like, that's great. That's what I'm going to do. You know, so I'm the same way, super conservative. And I just know at some point I'll own the properties free and clear and then retire. I don't know. Yeah, I've got a long way to go. So.
Well, thank you, everybody. I think we have one final slide. This is the lineup that we have scheduled through September 2022, so you can mark your calendars and tell your friends. May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, we will be having margaritas. We do have Bob Horning of H&S Wealth Management. He'll be talking about DSTs, which are a great investment alternative to having when you need to do a 1031 exchange. And June, yeah, especially now. June 2, we've got, it's not Ray Dalio, but he does narrate a 42-minute video that talks about the changing world order. And I just found this to be quite compelling. I think it's something that like every school should like play for their children or its students. I don't know how many people would really kind of understand it, but it's just like how history sort of repeats itself. Things go in circles. And ever since we got off the gold standard in 1971, how that affects the economy and the monetary system. So that's basically, bring your popcorn for that. It's like a viewing party, and then we could discuss afterwards. July 7th, we have a post-pandemic playbook. We actually have the honor of Mike Baker speaking. Mike Baker works with high net worth individuals. He is a financial advisor, and he's going to be telling us what he's seeing in the market and give options to how you may want to invest your funds. And he's with Gerber Kawasaki. So I was really pleased that he'll be able to join us and give us some really solid advice. Not advice, it's not financial advice, but you know, his take on the market and where he puts his clients' money and what he sees as far as trends and opportunities. And then August 5, we do have an appraisal that will be speaking. Appraisals, you know, usually when you're in escrow, people wonder, oh no, is the appraisal coming in or not? Will it make or kill the deal? We'll have an appraiser speaking in August. And then Dan Ukelson, the executive director of AGLA, that's the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles, September 2, he will be talking about some of the legislation that by that time will have been passed and what the repercussions are for multifamily property owners. So that's the whole schedule, you guys. I hope to see you, and David and I both hope to see you the first Thursday of every month on Live at 5. And we thank you so much for being here today. And Alex and Greg and Bruce and Sharon, thank you so much for being a part of this and sharing part of your family your family's legacy and your
Yeah,
contribution.
my parents joined last minute and I'm so glad they did. It was great we got on Zoom. To be
Oh,
there.
we were very fortunate to be on, and I figured out how to get on it.
Yay.
Thank you, guys. That was
I
very
did.
special. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See you
Very
all next
informative.
Thursday, next
Next month.
May 5, Cinco de Mayo.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Hi, everyone.
Bye.
Adios.
Yeah.
Bye.
See, I had them originally, they were up down here, so I could see the whole screen. But then,